Hello everyone and welcome to Skills for Mars Future of Work. Today I'm welcoming Stefan Koritar, entrepreneur and founder of Cryan Ventures. We are going to discuss the startup environment in Cluj and broader in Romania and Eastern Europe. We are going to touch on VCs, funding, leadership and many more others. Join us on YouTube, iTunes, Spotify and all the other major social media channels. If you like this episode and you enjoy the series, consider subscribing to it. Every week, new guests will share insights into the future of work. And now I give you Stefan. Hi, Stefan, and welcome to Skills for Mars Future of Work.
Hello, Julia. Thank you for inviting me, and hopefully I can chip in with some knowledge from myself.
Oh, I'm sure you can. Before we go into that, could you introduce yourself and tell everyone a bit about what you're doing?
Sure. So, as you already heard, my name is Stefan Koritar, and I'm based in Cluj-Napoca, Romania. What I'm doing from over here is mostly connected to entrepreneurship and overall the startup community. Hands-on, my things that I'm involved in. We're building, at least from my research, I can say this, that we're building the first venture development studio in Eastern Europe, or let's say I'm going to close down to Romania. And also running a couple of communities, which is Startup Grind, Product Tank, one that is upcoming and is going to be launched next week. Also, some other communities that are in the baking process. But these three, the Cryan Ventures, Startup Grind, and Product Tank initiatives, those are my main three things that together with the team, we're doing stuff around it.
The first question when I looked up what you're doing and in how many things you are involved was really, when does Stefan have time to sleep? Do you rest? What else do you do?
Yeah, I do rest. Sometimes it comes difficult, the rest part, because of the hyperactivity that my brain has. It's difficult to get some good, deserved rest at night. So I have to consciously unplug, do sports, go out. Sometimes it's hard to do that, and there's this weird pattern that comes back and knocks me on the shoulder. Hey, you've crossed the line again. But I'm happy. Coming back to your question, I'm happy that I have an amazing team around me. Me and my girlfriend were building together Cryan Ventures, which just a small note over here, where we are in the full undergoing of rebranding the company and restructuring it. So I'm happy that there's a really cool and really amazing team around me that helps me do everything around it.
Where does your love and passion for product and entrepreneurship come from?
Well, I think it started with product because that was my first thing. That's how I stepped into, let's say, reading and exploring the entire product part. And that is, so I've been living in Cluj-Napoca for more than 10 years. I think it's close to 12 years. And at my first job, I was working at an outsourcing company for a London-based company, insurance company. And it was a lot of, mundane tasks around processing data and analyzing that data and all that part. And at a certain point on that timeline, within 3 years, I found myself that I have a lot of time. So with that, lots of time on my plate, I started reading all kinds of stuff, right? So it was, social media was picking up more and more and more and more. And that was the moment where, within that reading, I started. I stumbled upon this idea of gift cards and collecting money, and how could we do it, right? So I came up with this idea of a product, of how cool would it be to have a product that solves two main problems, right? So I was really not pissed off, but it was kind of frustrating. Yeah, exactly. Thank you. Because we had this habit of collecting money, like collectively crowdsourcing money from all the colleagues when somebody's birthday was on, right? So we were, hey, are you donating? Are you giving for X person? So you had to do that really, manually going, and nobody had to know about it. And then the second part was you had to buy something for that person, and you never knew if that person will be happy with the gift that you thought it will make them happy, right? So those are the two kind of a nice to have problems that I was looking to solve at that particular moment. And the idea was to have a platform that we can have gift cards with sourcing, crowdfunding on them, right? So that in that way you could remove all the back and forth going to the people, or even bank accounts giving through messages and so on. Hey, put €5 over here in this bank account, and you can have that platform. And the gift card part, that was the amazing part, was that you could sit just one day and observe that person and see, or just let's say 1 week, and see that he loves Nikes, right? And you know that, okay, I'm going to buy a Nike gift card, and that's going to be, I know that I'm going to make him happy, right? So coming back to your question, that was my first touch with the product. And I think the background mindset and the framework of how I came up with a let's say solution to one of my problems is the definition of a entrepreneurship ish, like entrepreneurs are always set on fixing stuff, or they see an opportunity, and right. So that's how I started.
For those who don't know, and I'm sure they will go on the sites and I will link them, what do Cryan Ventures, Startup Grind, and Mind the Product, right? That's the third one.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. What do they do, each of them?
Okay, so Cryan Ventures, being a venture development studio, we have three main departments within the studio, and that is MVP building, and the second one is go-to-market department, and the third one is fundraising and consulting. The story behind it is, I'm not going to touch very much on MVP because it's kind of straightforward, and the idea is to build an MVP within 21 days and move that MVP to the most important department, and that is go-to-market. Because within go-to-market is everything that I'm going to touch later on this point, is something that you push forward to have validation and traction on that specific product, right? And then the third one being the fundraising part is that we see more and more opportunities of fundraising around Romania and even more Eastern Europe, right? From EU grants, EU funding, VC money, and so on. And me being part of the community for over 10 years already, I do have all this network kind of built on, and I know who to go to, right? But what I want to just touch briefly on is the go-to-market part, because and then move to the communities, the go-to-market part, because it's something that I came to see within all the discussions that we had at Startup Grind, within our fireside chats and different entrepreneurs from the ecosystem, and watching all kinds of documentaries around Romania. Romania has been built as a culture and as an economy on type of a production line economy, right? So we were producers, big producers. We didn't have an economy, right? We didn't have the opportunity to build an economy where you had all the major components, as for example, USA has, right? And when I say major components, I say production and marketing, right? So Romanian business culture, at least in the, let's say, bigger part of it, or not bigger part of it. Let's talk about only tech, since I'm only over there involved. Tech startups, initiatives, products, they focus highly on engineering, right? And that's something that we get as generational, let's say, maybe trauma, but not trauma. Something that we're picking up from our parents and the collective intelligence that needs to be fixed, right? So the tech startups are not having the marketing departments that should scale and should get validation to within that product, right? So engineering is focusing a lot of time on building those products, but we don't know, and maybe we'll not ever find out if those products is something that the market needs. Are we in a good timing or not, right?
Yeah, we build them because we can build them, not because the market needs them.
Yeah, for the passion of building, right?
Yeah.
But there are much more, many more components to that are missing. Going to the second and third one, startup grind is a I think I can say right now, and this is something that headquarters from San Francisco is saying as well, is the biggest entrepreneurial community on the planet. Right now, there are closely over 600 cities that have startup grind chapters. And within chapters like this, we do, well, now we do webinars, but before we did monthly events where people can gather and network, and they come listen to an interview, a fireside chat with a local entrepreneur that has track record, right, of building companies, exiting, or running multiple companies and giving back to the community. So that's startup grind that we do on a monthly basis. As I said, we switched now to webinars and everything online. And then we have the third one is Product Tank, which is somehow very similar to startup grind. Only Product Tank community, as well as it is a global community. I think it's over 300 cities right now. It's focused only on product as a high level, as an umbrella, right? Product strategy, product management, product marketing around it. And just to give you the link between them, why we're doing this, being a venture development studio, having partnerships with different corporates and enterprises and local software development companies, is you need some kind of a bridge, right, between what you're building over here in Eastern Europe, where still we have scarce VC money and we have lack of trust in EU funds, because that's something that we still have as a history, right? You need a bridge to all the major tech ecosystem hubs, right? So startup grind and Product Time comes as a very good fit in what we do over on the venture development studio.
So how does a venture development studio work? Do companies come to you, or if I have an idea, I come to you, we discuss it, and you guide me to build my startup?
Yeah, very high level. Yeah, that's how it works. There's a lot of nitty gritty details that has to be established. But just to give you some insights around it, is that we have partnerships with, like I said, software development companies that are local companies that would like to partner up, or no, they would like to start focusing on product development, and they somehow wouldn't like to chip in or chip out from the budget that the company itself has, right? So it's considered as an investment. And the solution, why we're coming to the solution, is because we've seen in the past companies running their internal product initiatives and they have failed, because you come to the finances and everything gets mixed up, right? So you put some kind of a budget for building a startup, and you measure that at the end of the quarter or 6 months or 1 year, what's the output, right? And the output is because of lack of marketing and so on, everything, all the story behind it. Coming back, we have partnerships with the software development companies over here. Also, what we do, and that's somehow the core thing that we are focused on, is partnerships with enterprises and corporates that are really, really slow in terms of innovation. And we can see that also in Eastern Europe. At this moment, we're focusing on enterprises and corporations around Eastern Europe that are willing to invest and invest in innovation and product building. And coming back to your question, yes, you or a person similar to you, or another, let's say, employee at a insurance company from London that has some kind of money saved out and they have an idea, they could easily come to us and start having a discussion about it, validate it within a small budget, move it into the go-to-market department, right? So those are the three key things that there's one more, but those are the three keys, three use cases that we have right now. And the fourth one is that we have our own idea that we're building inside. And we're going to be releasing one pretty soon to see how that works. And we already have one that we have released, and it's out there. We have been hit by the current pandemic, but we're hoping that it's not going to be necessary to close the doors on that.
Yeah, I hope so as well for you. Do you have to go to companies and promote what you're doing and support them, or do they come to you, or both?
We have to go to the companies.
Okay.
You still have to do the sales process that you kind of have classical sales process everywhere, right? So you still have to go to the companies because they are all in their space and doing their, focus on their operations. So you have to go and tell them, hey, you have an opportunity by partnering with us, by building a product based on your knowledge, and you can see that the market needs something that, or you can see that the company or the corporation or the enterprise that you are running needs certain tools that can be built but are also applicable as a standalone business, right? So we have to go and explain them because they're not focused on these kind of frameworks and systems to be built in within their companies, right? We do have companies that are thinking about it, but not so many.
You're not only seeing the older companies, existing companies that need support, but with the startup grind and product tank, you also see the new ones coming on the market, the startups. What are some trends? You only focus on the tech industry, right? So that's the focus. And
yeah, mainly
what
over
in tech? Because tech can be fintech, can be anything is tech right now. Even the technology in human resources, finances, medical. What are the industries in tech or the areas?
Yeah, so what I can say is that at least in our space over here in Romania, there's a lot of focus on deep tech startups, and not only there's also a lot of B2B SaaS players in different industries, but they're starting to popping out different deep tech startups. There's a startup that I recently interviewed for the Startup Grind Fireside Chats, which is Teleport HQ. And they are doing this really, really cool platform that is automated code generation, right? And really quickly, they have a technology that if you point to it on a blank, on a sheet of paper, you do a wireframe, that technology has the power to transpose that in a digital version of a wireframe, right? So that was at the beginning, and now they're able to reproduce a website like in minutes and bring together marketing and product and everything. So that's really cool. I'm just saying from a high level description, right? And coming back to your question, what we see as a success from a fundraising point of view, a lot of fundraising goes to deep tech. Even this action itself, right, proves that you need to be focusing on engineering. But there are also companies from HR. We have close to Cluj. We have from Târgu Mureș. We have Smart Dreamers. They are an HR SaaS platform that connects HR department with marketing and marketing automation and the entire recruitment process. So it's an interesting platform. So they have raised already, I think, above 2 million, and they're doing really nice. So these are kind of I think if I would pinpoint, it would be around SaaS and deep tech startups.
Okay, and deep tech is AI, blockchain.
Yeah. No, deep tech is not so much blockchain. I would say, yeah, AI, ML, and then we don't have quantum computing. We're not specialized as a region in quantum computing. Mm-hmm. But AI, ML, I would say that would be for deep tech. And then we have robotics as well in the region. Yeah.
Are these people, the ones that are building these new companies, are they people who already had companies and now it's their second or third or fourth venture, or are these new owners, young owners who just have an idea and go for it?
What I see is that there are people that come from different software development companies or enterprises. Most of them are coming from there, the startup founders. You do see people coming from, for example, there's a startup called Dory, and the founder herself has been working in the tourism industry. So she came up with this interesting product platform for guiding the guests in the hotel or getting data of how guests perceive the entire experience inside that hotel, right? So you have this mix, but I think if it would be in a percentage, I think it would be 80-20 or 90-10 as a ratio. But most of them come from companies. Most of them also start startups as a side hustle. Mm-hmm. Until they get funded. That's a use case that we are still, let's say, forced to have, because although we have more funding in the region, we still don't have that funding available that you have maybe in Western Europe, or I'm not even talking about USA. When you can easily get in a seed round, you can easily get up to 500,000, right? So that's kind of hard to get around this part.
I get it. But is it just because money is not available, or because people are not putting the effort in to do the admin part that a project like this requires, the budgeting and everything that you need to put together, right, as documentation and as discussion and communication and networking to make it happen? I've seen that a lot with European projects, so that's why I'm asking.
So there's a mix of both. Mm-hmm. Definitely, startup founders are not at that level of business acumen and investment readiness that the venture capitalists are requiring them to be. They are definitely at a stage where they are maybe thinking about it as a project, as something that, having fun, not actual with a mindset around, oh, this is going to be my business, right? So there's a lot of training for that mindset to be born. So that's one, and I think from the other side is that they're still scared, right? There's not so much money around, and you have to, let's say, manage it really efficiently and really do proper due diligence on what kind of startups you want to invest in. They have to have traction. They have to have good customer base. They have to have good technology stack and a good roadmap, a big enough market, right? So there are some kind of stuff that you have to have as a let's say indices to get funding.
How can someone get to that first milestone of getting funding? What makes them successful to get to that level where they have a product, they have a few customers, they have the right technology, they have all those indices so they can get the...
Yeah, well, I think it's a mix of more than one, definitely. But what has been as a focus and in all the communications and all the business angels that I have been talking to, everybody wants to see an MVP. They want to see some kind of abstraction. If you're on revenue or not, that's discussable because then the entire evaluation of the company is shifted into another direction. But definitely MVP and traction and a solid researched business plan. Maybe solid. Maybe I'm putting in a very rigid, in a very rigid context. Let's say just a research business plan.
Okay.
Because that's something that founders are not doing, researching their numbers around their...
That's what I want to ask. Where do they fail?
So that would be the point where I think they're failing, and where the gap happens. It's between having an MVP, getting some kind of traction, and then maybe you go over the business plan, right? You get some funding. You could get some funding, right? But that's somewhere where you don't start enabling marketing, right? And think as a proper business owner. So I think that's the after they get some kind of attraction, they say, okay, this is my green card for funding, right? And they stop somehow over there and start fundraising. So they're not actually doing in parallel all that business development and growth.
These are more, I would call them more technical skills, because this is something you need to learn, right? How to put together an MVP, how to put the business plan together, how to go and sell and get some traction and get some customers. What would you say are the skills that make startup owners and entrepreneurs successful?
I could say, right, from a theory perspective, I could easily say from all the interviews that I had as well, that I've been asking all the more successful entrepreneurs than me, definitely.
I'm thinking more of what you see rather than theory, because I mean, we can read books on that, but from what you see, well, the kind of companies and startups that made it, what were the owners like? How did they behave? What was their attitude? What were, I don't know, some personality skills, something that would make them stand out?
Well, since I'm looking from my lenses and my reality, right, and my perspective, I would say that it would be around how bad you really want to do what you want to do, right? And what I want to say about it is how passionate are you about building that specific thing, right? It could be something specific or not, or it could be the passion of building, right? But there has to be something that pulls you through all the challenges and all the heavy lifting of building a startup or a company. And I think, coming back to your question, that would be grit. Mm-hmm. And in combination with openness to change and adapt. Because I'm just thinking, like things like even me, things like finances, you can learn, right? Rationally, mentally, you can get a book, get a mentor, and start learning. But the part of something greater than that, something that it's emotional, that's something that pulls you through to any kind of hurdle or hardship is the passion, the drive, the grit, and in combination with the openness, where I think if you're rigid, it's very hard for you as a business owner to survive. Take as an example COVID, right? And businesses that have business owners with a rigid mindset that don't know how to adapt, most probably not most probably, there are bigger chances for that business to, let's say, get shut down or closed. So that would be grit and openness.
You said something about rigidity, and that would not serve the purpose. Are there any other stoppers from becoming an entrepreneur? Something that if you say, hey, if you recognize this in yourself, don't even start it. Just do what you're doing. You're good as an employee. Keep on with a stable salary, with a stable employment life, and don't start this.
That's a good question. Dealing with people. Talent, right?
Yeah.
Right. You have to be talented around managing people and people relationship. So that would be from my perspective. If you don't have that, and you have on the opposite side of that, you have the, let's say, weak temperament, that's going to be hard for you to push through whatever you have to build, because somehow that's a very fundamental thing to have, because all the people that would invest in you, they come and say, at least most of them, and all the things that I've been hearing is that, how many founders are you? Well, it's just me. Okay, you need to find one more, right? Because that's something that it's very fundamentally important, because if you're not going to be able to have proper relationships with the people around you, you're not going to be able to build a business. That's
interesting. I never thought of that actually you are asked to be two, because then you do have a backup and you can juggle between the skills, knowledge.
Yeah, that's how I see it from my perspective, because I can see that working well in my context, and I'm not having fully in fruition or top-notch finance skills or top-notch maybe management skills, but I'm getting there. I'm learning, I'm improving, I'm observing what I'm not doing well, right? So those are things that you can shift, adapt, change, remove, and so on. But you really have to work also on yourself as a being, of where are you doing wrong in relationship with all these people from your life, from your different circles, right? Business, fun, friends, whatever, right? But if you have a temperament issue, or you have a problem with being close to people, maybe it's going to be harder for you. Yeah, it's going to be stopper. But I don't want to be such a extremist and say stopper. You do see and find really successful businesses that are built by solopreneurs, right? You have this wave and trend of people working from Bali and being nomads and building businesses by themselves. I'm not saying it cannot be done. I think this stopper steps in when you're starting to think, okay, it's going to be a team of 10, 20, 30, 40 people, right? Maybe this future of work that we're looking into as a context of working remote is going to be interesting to observe of how that will change, because you're going to have some kind of systems in place that they will shift how people are working, how people's productivity gets tracked and so on. And you're not going to be needing so much soft skills or people skills, right? So it's going to be interesting, but
or maybe you need even more, because it's very hard to connect remote. It's not as easy to understand the other person, and you need to build empathy. It's very easy to blame rather than understand that maybe it's just a situation that's happening, and it's harder to do remote. Talking about remote and entrepreneurs, I just attended recently a conference. It was, of course, online, but I noticed that 99.9%, actually out of 25, only one person was older than 30. The others, all of them startups, tech startups, they were 25 to 30, something like this, so very young. Do you experience the same for startups and entrepreneurs as age?
No, I mean, yes and no. It's very, discussable. What I experience over here is that you get this middle age, right, around 30s.
Okay.
You see people going into startups, at least in this region, and then I'm going to articulate why I think it's going to be needed in the future to have younger startup founders. You see people around 30s, right, 30, 35, or maybe less, couple of years, that are pursuing something much more meaningful and something that drives them as a passion, or they have much bigger motivation in doing. And by that time, you assume that maybe that person has went through some kind of clearance, rethinking, retrospective in terms of how his life has been, and maybe this is my shot, or this is my opportunity to do something different. So that could be one of the motivations behind, and they throw themselves into entrepreneurship and start give themselves a chance. On the other side, from my discussion with Paul Brie, the founder of Teleport HQ that I've mentioned before, he pointed out a very interesting perspective around the age of the founders, and that is, there has to be a conversation around how fast, I'm talking now about Romania, how fast the software development companies have been picking up the students, right, straight from the college, right, and the students didn't have an opportunity to put themselves in a context where you could experiment, build stuff, learn, right. That's I think the very appropriate time to have that specific type of life and projects. And that's something that he pointed out. You don't see that happening, right. You don't have entrepreneurship projects connected to the colleges, right. And what he said, and I agree with him, is that we would like to see more of that, to see what kind of success ratio is going to be, and number of startups, if people will join like early 20s, right, starting startups.
Well, I think at that point, you do need to provide way more guidance and coaching, especially I'm thinking from an HR perspective, right? As someone who has worked with people for 18 years, you become a leader, and leadership is a muscle as well. You need to train it, you need experience, you need exposure to it, you need to work with people, you need to fail several times, as you said, reflect and learn and change your style. And there are different leadership styles, and you need to know how to juggle with them. But unless you know them, you cannot juggle. And it's hard to have all of that after you graduate. That's why I was asking about age, because I wanted to ask you about leadership as well. I guess it's different, right? These were all US startups. So the conference was with remote US startups and not European. And when I saw them, I said, wow, I mean, it has to be really challenging to manage people, as I said, remotely. And you are maybe 20, 25. You don't even know how to manage yourself really well at that point.
Exactly,
and how to reflect on yourself. And it's hard to run a business, hire the right people, manage them, know exactly how to give feedback, how to develop them. It's not easy, it's hard. So I think that if you're moving and you want to drop the age of entrepreneurs and support them, I think you would, at that point, you would need to support them with way more than just how to do it in the business plan. I think I actually think that's the easy part.
yeah. I agree. The fact that you starting so young, you definitely don't have the emotional intelligence needed to, maybe run a team of 50, or if you're successful, is really um, good and on a good traction and so on a trend. You definitely don't have all the skills required to run that. Yeah, I fully agree. And I
You
think
need
what's
mentors,
happening.
you need coaches, you need to learn somehow from
Yeah, I
others or by
agree.
yourself. Yeah.
And that's why I understand and see the perspective that the venture capital part, or part, are saying, hey, go get a founder, a co-founder, 2 3, right? The best is 2, and the stretch is maybe 3. Go get some people in your team to start working, have split different skills within the team. You're going to be the leadership part, you're going to be the management part, you're going to be the technical guy, right? So all these parts have to be combined, and of course there's going to be a lot of mentorship, and I think that's that's kind of obvious. And you can see that if you have a venture capital investing in a startup, they bring all the
They
business,
pour all the knowledge.
all the mature business people that they have around in their circle. They just pour the knowledge, right? And then the CEO gets guided. But yeah, I agree. I think what's happening over here, it's very organically. So it's not, it's not manufactured.
But it's really nice. So when I started working in HR in Romania, and I remember exactly as you said. I mean, when I started 18 years ago, it was manufacturing. That was it. Lawn manufacturing mostly.
Yeah.
We had some hardcore manufacturing as well for motors and cars and so on. But the rest was mostly a lot of textile and a lot of farming, post manufacturing.
Yeah.
And it was so hard with especially leadership skills. Everyone was just commanding. That was the way. There was no other way. Just tell them to do. I'm the authority. I'm the boss. You do as I say.
Yeah.
It did shift definitely as more and more companies came, different types from software to BPOs, and so the market really did develop. And then with the influx of companies, leadership skills did develop. So I guess at around 30, 35, when they start to make I think it's a career shift at that point, right? You're no longer an employee, but you have your own business. But I think it's a bit easier right now after about 20 years of development and investing in leadership.
It is. Definitely it is. At least from where I stand and where I am, mingling, things are different, right? Because, we are in the digital space, and there's no, you cannot see the demanding part so much around here. I've had friends that have been into more classical businesses, and they have been, let's say, complaining, for the sake of saying that word. They have been complaining around what a poor management and lack of leadership there was inside those companies. But definitely that culture is changing. I mean, there's a metamorphosis of that generations going out, and the new generation coming out, that it's more, more empathetic, more compassionate, more thinking of, we are all the same, we're human, we have, different interests, accepting, right, taking care and understanding. And I think one of the very important things that are coming on is the part that communications are beginning to be more effective within these structures. And that is, you have to communicate, right? You're not going to be demanding and commanding and so on, but you're going to be communicating, and you're going to be on the same page within, this is what you have to do by this time, right? Then, management principles and so on. By this time, well, these are the goals, these are the stretch goals and so on. So you definitely, I can see that it's switching. But I think we still have some companies definitely that are doing the old way. And
they exist here as well. So I wouldn't worry about the trend. I feel it's extremely nice and very good. Stefan, I have one question for you. Do you think the future of work will be entrepreneurship or intrapreneurship?
I think it's going to be entrepreneurship, because with the power of internet, with the power of digital, right? With the digital space, you have so many opportunities to start doing something for yourself. We could see that trend happening within e-commerces and so on. I'm only curious about what it's going to be how it's going to look like if we're going to have too many entrepreneurs. I don't know if that's possible, if everybody's going to be an entrepreneur and doing their thing. But maybe just going a couple of degrees off entrepreneurship and moving into the remote part, I think the future of work is going to change definitely after this, pandemic. And I don't want to comment on the entire architecture and choreography of that. But definitely there has been not a default. There's gonna be a new norm following this pandemic, and people's gonna be gonna start asking more for remote working, different compensations, and we're gonna see how that shift is gonna be maybe in a couple of years. Who knows? 5, 10, 15. But such a different shift in remote working. I was reading the other day an article, and they were saying that companies are thinking about shifting their employee workforce from 38% to 49% to be remote, right? So numbers like that, I think, goes up to hundreds of thousands, millions of people working remote. So those numbers going to definitely affect how neighborhoods are built, right? How you have traffic, how you have real estate projects designed and architected, right? We can find ourselves easily in 15 years that, half of the globe is going to be working remote, and real estate developers going to have to start thinking about, hey, all these people are working remote and we're not selling any business centers. Let's start building apartments with an office space, right? And I think that's going to be one thing. I mean, maybe that's a very far-fetched future in terms of future of work, but definitely we're going to see some transformation around it. And one thing that I can see also from different conversations that I had is performance management in future of work, of how is going to be managed, that part, right? And change, what kind of changes going to suffer. And what I'm thinking is that, and maybe you coming from Romania, it's going to be, and maybe not only Romania, I think it's applicable to any kind of country, what I'm going to say. You always have a person that is slacking more than the norm accepted within a company, right? You have like a base general norm of slacking, and then you have, the higher.
You have outliers, yeah.
Yeah, you have the productive ones and proactive and so on. Then you have the middle one, and then you have really slackers. The remote context and the change in performance management, I think it's going to reshape from outside inside, right? So it's going to be from outside in as a direction, how people are perceiving work and working, right? So because you're going to be exposed to a really big transparency within that work environment. You will not be able to, let's say, pull something off and say, oh, I couldn't work this day, or I was waiting from that guy, right? Some things will fly, but you will be able to observe patterns much more easily, right? And I think that's gonna change. Yeah.
That's going to change definitely how we work. And I was talking with Professor Panish Puranam about this, and how if people start working remote, they can actually track not the content of email, but sending them, how often, to whom as a recipient, as an IP, right? And see exactly how people work and how often they communicate, how they form networks, how they influence each other. Very, very interesting. And companies do try to mimic what's happening in the office with what's happening at home. So they will try to control as much as possible via software, via whatever, to know that their employees are productive. And there are tons of already applications that do this, like the ones that are on Upwork or any kind of gig freelancing platform. They can be used for companies as well. It's going to be interesting.
Definitely. I can say that for me, remote working fits, and I think it's not going to be an opportunity. I'm not saying that it's going to be bad. The fact that performance management and how goals will be evaluated is going to be a bad thing. I think it's going to be a good thing, because you're going to be forced in or forced out as an employee, because you will have an opportunity to say, or at least to have some kind of introspection and retrospective to be done on your work. Is this fulfilling me or not? Is this making me happier, right? And there's going to be, let's say, a sustainable and good managed pressure from that transparency, from performance management. But coming back to what I started saying, is that you're going to be, at least I'm foreseeing that some people will decide to not accept that type of work, right? So you're going to be forced, and there's going to be a much more drastic change in terms of, this doesn't fit me and I will rather do that, right? And that's also good for the company, because you don't have money leaking out, right, within unproductive hours. So I think, there's going to be even positive and negative influences.
Definitely. Stefan, if anyone in Cluj or Romania or Eastern Europe or even outside wants to contact you, discuss about ventures, wanting support, go to market, NVPs and all of that, where can they find you?
Please do reach out via LinkedIn. That's the safest way to reach out right now. As I said, not too long ago, we're going through some serious rebranding and rebuilding our venture development studio, and also preparing for a fundraising round. So that's gonna change. We're gonna change our name as well. So yeah, definitely LinkedIn.
I'll make sure I'll have a link in the post so everyone can reach out to you.
That's great. Yeah, that works. Cool.
Stefan, thank you very, very much for today, and thank you for your time and for your insights.
Thank you, Yulia, for the invitation, and hopefully my comments and inputs have been and will be well received.
I'm sure of it. Why not?
Thank you, Yulia.
Thank you.